Okay, it's getting late. It's April 28th, so it's getting late, so I'm gonna call it quits for the night. Just get around. It's a bit of a mess here right now. I finally got all of the firewall slats in. Man, that is a job. Wow. It's super solid though. Um, I've got a couple more bolts to put in on this guy here. You can see in the front there the clamp's still on the one side, so I've got that left to do. And man, fabricating those parts and getting them to line up all perfect, that was a chore. And to make it a little more difficult, these braces here were ever so slightly bent in shipping, so I had to straighten them out, and probably added a couple hours to make sure that those were back straight and level like they should be. I don't know, I think it was at the end of the crate and somebody shoved it real hard into the back of a truck or something and they got slightly bent, but they weren't so badly damaged that they're not usable. I just had to hammer them out and make sure they were everything was straight, and then compare all the measurements once it was put in there to make sure everything was straight. But now that it's done, I'm happy. So that's the firewall that's now complete. So now that this is done, I can get on to more fun stuff. That's the firewall from the back side. So it's finally starting to come together. This was probably 3 days, maybe 4 days worth of work. This one here, this piece was a little long. I think it was about 1.5 inches or so too long, and I had to cut it to size. But the dimensions for this here between that and the very edge of the firewall are exact according to the instructions, so I'm happy with that. So now that all this is done, get back to making it look more like an airplane. Okay, today is April the 29th. Doesn't really look like I did a whole lot, and I probably didn't actually do a whole lot. So I got this fastened down, and so this area is done, except there's two large angles that need to go up against that bolt onto the side there, and those are both fabricated parts, and they're pretty complicated shapes, so I'm going to call it quits for tonight. That's probably going to take a couple hours to make, at least the first one, because they're fairly complicated. You can see the contour of those, so it has to be cut to fit that. Plus, it has some tabs that go up on the top edge there, so that's going to take a little while to build. But all the hard part of getting that straight and mounted and this big guy put in and everything is finally done. I haven't got the big light turned on here, so it's a little hard to see, but I finally got all the countersinking finished, and I went around the whole frame and realized that I don't want to really pull it up, but underneath here there's a bunch of screws or bolts as well that had to be countersunk that I hadn't done before. And same for this side. There was several on the bottom that hadn't been countersunk, and there was a couple on this side that hadn't been countersunk. So I've gone around the whole frame of everything that I've done so far and made sure that everything was countersunk properly. So going forward, of course, I won't have to do that because I've got all the clecos and the tools and everything to do it as I'm building it, instead of kind of the dumb way, kind of in a rush way I did it before. But it's starting to look like a cockpit, sort of. If I kind of move back away from here, you can kind of start to see it's starting to look like something. So yeah, the next steps are going to be putting that those two big angles. So this is the angle, kind of the raw material, 2x2 angle that needs to be cut into those crazy shapes. So there's no way I'm going to finish that tonight. So I'm going to makes a nice stopping point. So that's what I'll be fashioning that into. It becomes two pieces that have the complicated shapes that fit on top of those those forward brackets. So I think that's about it. Okay, not to beat a dead horse, but I finally got the rest of this nose gear bracing all finished, including those two braces that sit on top of the angular ones. That was a bit of a chore to fabricate those. So, but they're in. This is back in. That's what the nose gear hooks onto. That's a really sturdy weldment of stainless steel. This section here is in and bolted in, so that's all permanent now, and it's all fastened to the triangular ones. Fabricating those two things, these pieces right here that go on top of the triangular ones that kind of strengthen everything. Those were a real bear to make because they're fairly complicated. You probably can't see terribly well, but there's quite a few angles. There's a bend at the end, so there's that to do. One boo-boo that I did make was the one on the right there. I drilled the holes a little too close together, so I had to use vice grips to bolt it in so they don't look exactly the same. But there's no difference in strength or anything. It's just looks just a little funny because one of them's close together and one's spaced properly. But so I'll measure 16 times instead of 15 times next time. Okay, next thing up is the motor mounts are going in there and here and here, and I've started fabricating those. The one that's in the dark primer is the one that's completed, and I've got the bushings pushed in and secured and everything, so that one's ready to go except for the bolt holes. This one is ready to get the holes drilled in it, but I'm calling it a night, so that's where that one sits. So these two will be going on the bottom, and then there's two identical ones that go on the top. That's what those are cut out of. Some pretty substantial square aluminum. I think that's it. This is probably a 4-day chore, getting that all, like 4 days total. It's been a lot more than 4 days, but 4 days of actual working to get that bracing all in there and lined up and perfectly drilled, except for those two. So it's really turning out nice. There's still a fair amount of fabrication ahead, making spacers and whatnot for the engine mounts, but I've got those two, one done and one almost done, and then two more to make. And I got a new blade in the bandsaw that's really making that a lot easier now. The other one was super dull. So I think that's it. So that's my progress for May 1st. It's already May. Thanks for watching.